All right, get this. We're only 15 months away, not minutes, from the 2024 presidential election. Democrats, they are desperately trying to force Americans to focus on anything and everything other than their party's presumptive nominee. That would be your old grandpa, Uncle Joe Biden. Now, that includes the Democrats in Biden's Department of Justice and other Democratic prosecutors all around the country, all making headlines with a bevy of suspiciously timed indictments against what is right now Joe Biden's chief political rival. That would be Donald J. Trump. Biden himself, he's nowhere to be found. As the 2024 campaign ramps up, the president of the United States, who is supposedly running for re-election, is spending his next 10 days at the beach. By the way, when he has no shirt on, it is not a pretty sight. He is not in the White House demonstrating, quote, leadership. He's not on the campaign trail winning over voters. By the way, there's a picture of Joe being held up by his wife, Jill, walking along the beach, seemingly to struggle in Delaware in the night sand. He is, by the way, during the day, demonstrating his ability to leisurely ride a bicycle. He didn't fall today. Good job, Joe. We're proud of you. Out of sight, out of mind, or at least that's what Democrats and the media mob would like you to think. They want you to focus only on Trump indictments, court proceedings, January 6th, documents, anything other than Joe Biden. And we went through the timeline last night. If Joe Biden gets bad news, the next day there's another Trump indictment. Shocking. But despite all the hysteria and cooked up political charges and indictments against Donald Trump, the weak case about payments in New York from 8 years ago, documents at Mar-a-Lago. By the way, didn't Hillary Clinton have top secret classified documents? If I remember, no reasonable prosecutor would ever prosecute. Didn't she delete 33,000 subpoenaed emails with Bleach Pit? No raid at the Chappaqua home. No arrest of Hillary Clinton. No charges brought in that case. And by the way, the same thing with Joe Biden. He had documents not in one place, in 4 separate places. Not one of them raided, and no charges against him either. In fact, the only candidate, by the way, that if we talk about accused by a credible FBI source of taking money from a foreign national in exchange for a policy decision, that is the one guy struggling to walk on that beach in Delaware and struggling to even move a beach chair in Delaware, and that is the sitting president of the United States of America. In other words, Joe Biden's serious, very real bribery allegations. Now, in addition to Biden's deteriorating mental and physical abilities, these corruption allegations against the president, this is a clear criminal danger. The media can ignore it all they want, but this is real. We all know that Biden lied about his involvement in his son's shady international business deals. He said over and over and over again, I never once talked to my son Hunter, my brother, or anybody for that matter, about their foreign business deals. No, he didn't just talk to them. He was involved in them. We know about the paper trail of shell corporations. We know about the suspicious activity reports, and we know about foreign cash, often from our top geopolitical foes, flowing magically into the Biden family coffers, and a business led by a person that admitted at the time he was a crack addict with no experience at all in the businesses that they were engaging in with some of our strongest enemies. Now, we know about the mountain of hard evidence on Hunter's hard drive, implicating his very own father, linking him directly to financial payments from these foreign business deals. You know, half my income goes to Pops, 10% for the big guy. Oh, I'm sick and tired of paying for Pops' home repairs. We also know about the IRS whistleblowers and the witnesses claiming to have recordings. We know all of this looks very bad for Joe Biden, although you wouldn't know if you were watching any other channel but Fox. Now, of course, thanks to Biden's ultra-partisan and weaponized DOJ, Joe Biden will not be seriously investigated or held accountable, but he will be tried in the court of public opinion. And all of this before 2024. That probably is all in the end that will likely matter. And right now, Biden's poll numbers, they're frankly abysmal. Look at the New York Times, Siena poll. The president's approval rating at a low 39%. In a head-to-head matchup, well, there's a new poll out tonight by Insider Advantage. Donald Trump up by 1. In this poll, they are now tied at 43% each. A growing number of voters are now doubting Biden's character. They no longer trust him. They don't think he is physically, mentally, cognitively up to the job. And frankly, they don't even like him as a person. Because over the last few years, we have now witnessed the real Joe Biden up close and personal. And frankly, it's not a very pretty picture. By the way, it's not just these very real bribery allegations and his cognitive troubles, and his odd mood swings. And frankly, we saw this in Finland, pretty creepy behavior by Joe Biden that's been seen over and over again. Don't let your children near the guy. Many Americans are repulsed by Joe and Dr. Jill Biden's attitude towards their own 7th grandchild. 4-year-old beautiful little girl in Arkansas who until recently was totally shunned by the entire Biden family. That's a pretty mean, soulless, despicable thing to do. The child's mother wanted her daughter to be part of the Biden family, but they rejected this 4-year-old girl over and over and over again, wouldn't even acknowledge her existence. That was, of course, until last Friday, when terrible poll numbers forced Biden to finally have to acknowledge that his own granddaughter is alive and living in Arkansas in what was a weekend news dump. And he now says he wants to meet her for the very first time in 4 years. What a loving grandpa Joe is. Now, if you want to know who Joe Biden really is as a person, you can look no further than this story. He is not the sweet, loving, congenial grandpa that he would like you to believe he is. Frankly, what we're witnessing and learning is we're seeing a cold, calculating career politician who cares more about wealth and status than his own family. And by the way, when you see Joe Biden through that lens, all the corruption, all the bribery allegations seem very plausible, don't they? Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.